or Kosi. Thank you. In opening, we will rise and sing hymn number 144.
Ngiqonda indlela enyukayo, ngiqonda indlela ngiqonda indlela enyukayo, ngikhwelazo ngizinsuku nginguye okhulekayo, Nkosi ngisephezulu, Nkosi ngisibambiseke emhlabeni olithundu, endaweni ephakeme, Nkosi ngimise phezulu. Angithandi ukuhlala lapho kunengane enkulu, kumbabanye bangahlala, mina ngithanda phezulu. Nkosi ngisibambiseke emhlabeni olithundu, endaweni ephakeme, Nkosi ngimise phezulu. Ngiphenhlane hlanzekile, uSathane yangikwaza, kodwa inkolo yami izwile, Nkosi ngimise phezulu. Nkosi yami aniseke emhlabeni olithundu, endaweni ephakeme, Nkosi ngimise phezulu. Ngizokhwela again. Let's do it one more time. Nkosi ngimise phezu, oh Nkosi yami, simamiseke emhlabeni olithundu endaweni ephakeme. Nkosi ngimise phezulu.
Church may be seated. I stand to greet the Church of God in Christ's wonderful name. Amen. Happy Sabbath, Church. Has any one of you ever lent anybody money? We have, eh? How did it feel when the period to bring it back came and they didn't bring it back? But how did it feel when they did bring it back? I mean, it's your money already. It's not like you're getting anything new, but it still feels very nice, ne? Yeah, I know. It also happens to me. Can you turn our Bibles to the book of Proverbs? We'll look at Proverbs chapter 19 for our offertory reading this morning. Proverbs chapter 19, and then we'll take note of only one verse. We'll be focusing on verse 17 this morning. If we find it, can we say amen? Okay, Proverbs 19 and verse 17. Allow me to read it in the easy-to-read version. In the New King James, it says here, "He who has pity on the poor lends to the Lord, and he will pay back what he has given." The he here is capitalized, so we can read it and say, "And God will pay back what he, which is the giver or the lender, has given." But in the easy-to-read version, here it is what it said. I was like, wow, okay. Giving help to the poor is like loaning money to God. He will pay you back for your kindness. That's what the Bible says. I mean, how lovely is it to have God in your debt? God owes me one, you can say. No, it's not. You can't say, no, that's what they told us at church. It's what the Bible is saying, Angit. It says, it's like lending money to God. And the beauty is that God always pays his debts. Amen. In fact, the Bible says that he will give it not only as you gave it to him, but pressed down, shaken, and running over. Amen to that. The Lord asks you to return cheerfully. This is from Counsels on Stewardship. He asks you to return cheerfully to him a portion of the goods he has lent you. And thus you become his almoners. You know, I find it as though it's a rigged game, if you ask me. I mean, it's like an unfair game totally. Why? Because first and foremost, what we are giving does not belong to us. It's already God's, ne? So we're giving God God's money. And then he says, I will bless you for giving me my money. I mean, I don't know how that maths works, but yeah, that's what he says here. So, and then he says, yeah, he will become his almoners. Now, what is an almoner? A word is taken from the word alms. I think we're more familiar with that one. Alms is something given to the poor as charity, such as money, such as clothing or food. So an almoner, therefore, is someone who distributes these alms. I loved it in one dictionary. It says someone who dispenses alms for another. So we are basically giving the poor on God's behalf. We are becoming his almoners. That's what it says. But here's the question. Why is God choosing us to become his almoners? Counsels on Stewardship again says, the only plan which the gospel has marked out for sustaining the work of God is one that leaves the support of his cause to the honor of men. In other words, God would have it no other way. I mean, he could have made money fall like manna from heaven. He could have done that. He could have sent down angels to make sure that the cause is taken care of in the field. But he doesn't do that. Why? Because he leaves it to the honor of men to become his almoners. And in us answering that call, he then says, I owe you one. He then says, you have lent actually to me. In that line, Bazalwane, as we prepare our tithes and offerings this morning, the church as a worldwide movement is considering Adventist World Radio today. And we're being called to think about this ministry. In fact, they call it the Adventist World Radio is able to travel where missionaries cannot go. In fact, this morning in Sabbath school, we were speaking about that very thing, how there are many ways to reach the unreachable. And here is one way that we are able to use a ministry that we have in over 1,000 countries, Adventist World Radio. It can reach where you cannot go. It can go where you cannot go. And I promise you, friends, remember that in heaven we will have stars on our crowns, and stars represent souls that have been won to the kingdom by your hand. I promise you, through the work of mission, you will be able to have stars that you did not even know that you were ministering to on your crown when you get to heaven. So the call this morning when we close is that as you return God's tithe and give your promise, and your promise is just basically your offerings given as a regular percentage of your income. As you return God's tithe and give your promise, may you also remember the ministry that are there for missions such as Adventist World Radio. May we put our desires last and God first. I'll ask the church to kneel as we pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you this beautiful morning. We thank you for choosing us to be your children, for loving us first, and for giving us this great privilege to respond in loving you too. We are nothing without you. We confess that. And you took us indeed from the miry clay, and you saw something of worth in us, such that you planted us even on a solid ground. We are grateful for that, Father. As we come to you this morning, we pray for the forgiveness of our sins. We are unworthy to even call upon your name, but through the ministry that you gave us in Christ, we are here. And we are grateful for that. As an expression of our love, Father, as we are about to give back to your ministry through our offerings and to return your tithe, we are saying, may you take this as a token of our appreciation. We are praying, King Jesus, that may you continue to work on us, that we can love you more, that we can do more for you, that we can appreciate you more, but above all, Father, that we can reflect you in our lives as we live out our lives for you. We thank you for this. We thank you for your gift on the cross. And we are saying, here we are trying to partake of that giving spirit, even as we give ourselves. Thank you for loving us. Thank you for your spirit. Thank you for your Sabbath. This is our prayer in Christ's wonderful name. Amen.
We shall do number 130. Number 130. The second verse, we shall allow the piano to lead us. Ngingowa kongo singiswi liswi langijelango tando ngifisukuqi nekukholweni ngidonselwe eduze eduze Nkosi lapho wavela khona ngidonsele eduze Nkosi
Thank you, Father. Thank you. With this offering, Father, we are saying we are confident your work will continue to go forward. Not because of the means that have been provided by Kempton Park Central, but because we are bringing it back to you and say, little is much when you are in it. May it be used according to your will. We thank you and may you bless your children for answering your call. This we pray in Christ's name. Amen.
I greet the saints of God in the wonderful name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
It's like you do not believe that Jesus is coming again.
Yeah.
Do we still believe that Jesus is coming again?
Yes.
So I am greeting you. I'm going to greet you once again.
Yes.
So I'm greeting you in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
My dear brothers and sisters, I've been tasked with a task that is not so easy. If ever there is anything that is more difficult, is to take up the prayers of the children of God and present it to Him, knowing very well that I myself also am a sinner who is in need of that prayer. So, and I also like the fact that God does not call the qualified, but He qualifies the one who has been called. It's not an easy thing to do. I know I'm used to coming up here and doing announcement each and every time, but when you have to take a task like this, it seems as if you start shaking, because you know that the task that is ahead of me is bigger than me. Shall we open our Bibles to the book of Matthew, chapter 24. What I would want us to pray for at the end of this, I'm going to ask two people that they come up front, and then they are going to be the ones that are going to be praying for these two things. So those things, I'm going to ask Mr. Modise and Mam Dladla, so that when we are done, can they come up? They are going to be praying for the following two items. We are living in a time where it seems as if sin has become something that is not, I don't know how to put it, but we are senseless of it. It's like we just keep on doing it, and it keeps on wearing us down, and it's the one that causes us not to have a proper relationship with our Lord. So on the first item, we are going to be praying that may the Lord help us so that we'll be able to have a proper relationship with Him. And then the second item is that in all the sins that are hindering us from moving forward, may the Lord grant us His presence to assure us that we can live a sinless life. Shall we open, as I've said, shall we open our Bibles to Matthew 24? I'm going to read from verse 3 up to verse 8. It reads as follows. Verse 3. Now, as he sat down on the Mount of Olives, his disciple came to him privately, saying, "Tell us, when are these things going to be? And when will the signs of your coming and the end of the age," in other versions it says end of the world, "be?" And then verse 4, and Jesus said to them, "Take heed that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, saying, 'I am Christ,' and will deceive many. And you will hear of rumors of war, kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines, pestilences, the diseases that are going on. There has been famine that we've been seeing, earthquakes in various places, and we have also felt some of these effects. All these things must come to pass, but I like what it says here, but the end is not yet. Though kingdom might be fighting against kingdom, the end is not yet. There will be pestilences. The end is not yet. There will be earthquakes. The end is not yet. But I like what verse 8 says. All these things are only the beginning. I do not know if maybe this verse awakens us from the trouble that we are in. We have been hit by the coronavirus. Many people are panicking, saying that where on earth are we going to be living? But this verse is reminding us that those who are like the children of Issachar, once this starts happening, they know the time in which they are living in. They know that it is not a time wherein, if I am in a relationship with the Lord, I take it as a relationship which is done by the world. A relationship wherein you are in but you are not in. What I just want us to think about is that, saints, the Lord is coming. And I'm not sure how your relationship is with your Lord. But from this verse, It's only telling us that these are only the beginnings. And if we are going to fail to have a relationship with the Lord in the time of peace, trust me, surely, in the time of difficulties, it will be difficult for you to have a relationship with the Lord. It is a time wherein now, I do not know what your sins are, but you know them. This time is the time wherein you bow down on your knees daily. Ask Him to be the one who forgives you of your sins. Because those sins, they are the ones that are hindering you from moving forward. They are the ones that are hindering you from moving the gospel forward. When they say they need missionaries to do this, when we say we have to do evangelism, the reason that maybe you are sitting down could be that you do not have a relationship with your Lord. So today, it's just my prayer that time is not on our side. And all the things that we failed, Spirit of prophecy does say that all the things that we failed to do in the time of peace, surely we shall do it. This time we will not only do it on our own, but we will do it with tears running down. My dear brothers and sisters, as I call Brother Mdise and Mam Dladla to come and pray for us for the 2 items, that may the Lord help us to have a proper relationship with Him. And also, may the Lord help us with the sins that are hindering us from moving forward to Him. You are not the only ones who are at fault of this. Even me, there are times wherein I see that my relationship with my Maker is not where it ought to be. And I like the song that is being played, that when I survey the wondrous cross on which Jesus died, He died for me and you. Are we going to just relax and say, no, it's fine. He died, it's fine. But we are forgetting that He died for all those sins that we have committed. He says, bring them to me and I will forgive you. Shall we kneel down as they are going to be praying for us?
Let's close our eyes and pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, our God, our Creator, our Redeemer, our Savior, we come to you, Lord, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Thanking you, Lord, that you are God. You are with us at all times. You are Emmanuel. Lord, God of heaven, forgive us our sins. As we come before your throne of mercy, Lord, we are pleading that search our hearts, each and every one of us, which we are kneeling down. We are saying, Lord, we are sinners. There's nothing good in us, our talks, our going, our thinking. We are filthy rags. But we thank you, Lord, for Jesus Christ who died on the cross for us. For that blood that shed on the cross, that when we pray, asking for forgiveness of our sins, confessing, Lord, that there is nothing that we can do on our own. We are pleading for your grace, we are pleading for your mercy, that forgive us, cleanse us, Heavenly Father, purify us, mighty God, with your blood this day, the day of Sabbath, the day of rest, the day that you have blessed, that we shall come to you and fellowship and have fellowship with you. We thank you, Lord, that as we confess our sins, you have promised us that when we confess, you are faithful and just to forgive us. We thank you, Lord, for that promise, that as we surrender all unto you this morning, we say, Jesus of Nazareth, forgive us. Forgive us, mighty God, for in you there's nothing impossible for you to do. We have promised us that when we call unto your name, you'll answer and show us great and mighty things. We thank you, Heavenly Father, for as we have prayed now, you have heard our prayers and you have answered us. In Jesus' mighty name, I pray, amen.
Oh, what wretched people we are. And who shall save us from these bodies of sin? Our Father and our God, we come with humility, but also with confidence that you are a loving God. We pray, Father, for those who have given up, those who may think that you have written them off because they keep trying, but they just don't get it right. I pray, Father, that you give them hope and you give them courage. And Father, it is with that understanding that we approach the throne of grace. That indeed we serve a God who overflows with grace and mercy. And we say, Father, please forgive us. Forgive us, Father. For even when we think we're doing right, we do wrong. I pray, Father, that you bless us with clean motives, with clean thoughts, and clean actions. Help us through the power of the Lord to do right and to live right. And help us, Lord, to always walk in the footsteps of Jesus and to understand that we cannot do it on our own. We therefore stretch our hands, Lord, and in faith we hold on to the hand of Jesus. And we say, Lord, be our strength, be our hope, be our pillar of confidence. As we are here this morning, Father, we have different burdens that you alone fully understand. And all of those, Lord, we lay them at the foot of the cross and we say, Father, sort them out for us and give us hope. We pray, Father, that even in the midst of this coronavirus, that you become our hope. We pray, Father, that we may make a turnaround through your power so that we may restore our relationship with you, Lord. Because in fact, it is you who does the restoration, because you are always waiting for us with open arms. You always knock on our doors to open for you. Help us to have a good relationship with you, a relationship that leads to salvation. And help us to claim the promises of the words of Jesus on the cross when he said, it is finished. Help us to claim that promise that the back of sin has been broken and in Jesus we have power. Oh Father, in a world where we believe in philosophies, we believe in herbs, oh Father, help us restore our faith in prayer. Help us to believe again. And this is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
The Bible says, train up a child in the way that he should go, that when he's older, he will not depart from it. With that, I would like to call upon the children's department and the kids for the service.
Abantwana abancane bathanda umhlengi baligugu kuJehova owabumenzi Jezoyikayeze kukhanya umcele ngobuhle bayo khanya akhazimo njengazoni kanyezi kukhanya umcele ngobuhle bayo khanya akhazimo.
Sanibonani bazalwane. Before we do our story, I wanted to run by our announcement first, then we do our story. Last week we asked for packages from the kids. This is what the packages looks like. We have a toothbrush inside. We have Vaseline. They've already brought other kids how. And we have a toothpaste, soap. What's missing? Oh, then it's a towel. This is how our packs are gonna look like for next Sabbath when we are going to meet with our friends in Norkham Park. We are going there. We will leave at after Sabbath school when the youth is going to do the sandwiches by town there. We are going to Norkham Park to spend some time with our friends. Don't worry, afternoon we will practice everything that we'll be doing with our friends there. 2 o'clock we come back so that we make sure that we get whatever we are going to do there. Another one that we asked is the donations. On top of this one, we asked for donations. The donations are for food, because we are planning to have lunch, not just to have a service, give them the parcels and then we go. We are planning that after that, we sit with them, we share the food that we have. That will only happen if we get enough donations from the members. Hence, we are asking again that please, we need the donations, because if we don't get enough, then we will have to cancel the lunch part. We come back right after the service, we give them the parcels, then we come back. Guys, don't say, Auntie Kali, you said you'll give us food. I will give you food. We will make food only if we have enough donations from our parents and members. Members, we are asking again, donations for our lunch next Sabbath. Thank you. Shh, guys, let's not make noise now. 3 friends are coming from the gym. They look so exhausted, they are tireless, they are tired, and they come in walking by, busy chatting and busy making fun. They are hot, sweaty, and tired. They begin talking as they drop down next to their gym bags.
Oh, I don't think I can take another step. I thought coach was preparing us for 100 meters, not taking us to the hospital. Sorry, Jay, but I think you'll have to carry me back to class.
I'll be lucky enough to even carry my bag to class. Was that 40 or 50 pull-ups we did?
Get a grip, Jay. That was only 10. Now hurry up. I'm not waiting for you guys so you don't get into trouble with Mr. Jones. There's a quiz today, and I only have to win one more to get the prize.
Oh, come on, Kelly. Just give us a moment to catch our breath.
Come on, Tim. Come on, Tim. The longer you sit there, the harder it will be to get you back up.
Okay, fine. But only if you take my bag to the class.
You aren't going to drink that, are you?
What? No, I'm gonna take a shower in it. Of course I'm gonna drink it.
Do you know how bad that stuff is for you? It's full of caffeine and sugar.
Yes, just what I need to keep me awake this afternoon. I'm so tired.
She's right, you know. That stuff is really bad for you. Mom told me that it has caffeine in it, and caffeine is a diuretic, which actually dries up your body. So after all that running, you need something that will put water in your body.
Just wait. Wow, go to the top of the class, Jay. I'm sure you and Kelly will be happy there.
Just trying to help. You did get the slowest time on the relay today.
Ouch.
Not to mention all the sugar that is in that drink. Once you finish it, you better do a few more laps to burn it off. Have a guess of how much teaspoons of sugar are there in a soft drink.
2 or 3, I suppose.
No, Tim, it's 10. 10 whole teaspoons of sugar. Can you imagine sitting down and eating 10 whole teaspoons of sugar in a row, and how yucky you'd feel afterwards? Not to mention all the artificial preservatives, colors, and flavors.
Yes, the flavor is great now that you mention it.
How many of those things do you drink a day?
It's all right for you too, but I hate drinking water. It makes me feel sick. It's like having to drink wet air. Are you drinking another soft drink? We spoke about this yesterday. Sorry, coach, but these two have been on my case too. And Jay mentioned something about diabetic, something like that.
You mean diuretic. But if you drink too much of that stuff, you might become a diabetic. If you have too much sugar, you can damage your body's ability to make insulin, which is the hormone in our bodies that helps us to process and store sugar. Without insulin, the sugar would just hang around in our bloodstream, clogging up our cells, which can cause heart disease, kidney failure, eye damage, and loss of feeling in your arms and legs.
I have an uncle who's diabetic. He can't drive anymore because his eyes have gone so bad now.
You see, it is a very bad disease.
But he's fat, coach. I'm not.
No, but you are still young. Your body is still growing and you exercise. You will be using up more of your food's energy. But one day you will stop growing and bad eating and drinking habits are hard to break. Water is best because it flushes out all of the toxins in your blood. It is the body's cleaner. If you don't drink plenty of it, your body won't work as well as it should. Do you know how much of water of your body is made of water?
I do.
Okay, Kelly.
80%, coach.
That's right, 80%.
Wow, that's a lot of water. I wonder why we aren't see-through. And the average person sweats away 2 cups or 500 mils a day. That is not even counting all of the extra water you will have lost during this class.
Wow, no wonder Mom asks me every day if I've been drinking plenty of water.
And do you know how much water you're supposed to drink a day?
I think 6 to 8 cups a day.
That's right, and more if you exercise.
That's like a whole 2 liters of water. Wow, Tim. At least you can pass the metric conversion test.
And what's worse, if you already feel thirsty, that means you have already run short of water.
He means dehydrated. And that soft drink is only going to make it worse because caffeine is diuretic.
When our bodies become dehydrated, we find it harder to concentrate and we can get headaches, which aren't very helpful when you still have an afternoon of school after coming up.
But coach, I hate water.
I used to not like it too, but you'll get used to it.
He'd need to drink a whole bath to manage that, Jay, and I could even beat him hopping.
Fine then, race you to class.
Hey, that's not fair. See you, coach.
I never knew that water was so important. Mom used to try and make me drink water, but I never liked it. I guess I had better get to class. Here, coach. Suddenly, I'm not feeling thirsty anymore. Well, not for that. I think I'll stop by the water fountain on the way to class. Good for you, Tim.
Thank you so much, guys. All right, who was listening to the story? Who was listening? Those who were playing, I saw them. Let's see who was listening. How many liters must we drink of water? 8 liters, wonderful. Who was listening? 8 liters. He's saying 8 liters. Who else? 2 liters. Oh, okay. I think that one is better. Ngosi, you will die of 8 liters. Ne? Let's make it 8 cups. 8 cups so that it is 2 liters. Ne? He meant to say cups, not 8 liters. How many percent is water in our bodies? 80. Guys, you deserve stars today, ne? Remind me of your stars, ne? All right, and then let me check again. What was Tim drinking? That coach said no. Coke. Oh, so we are not supposed to drink Coke, right? Oh, but I love Coke. Why am I not supposed to drink Coke? Okay, there's too much caffeine. Another thing, what's there? Oh, there's sugar. How much sugar there? 10 teaspoons. So whenever you have this, ne, forget about the parents, ne, they know what they are doing. Whenever you have this, you must think of yourself carrying a bag of sugar, just pouring it into your mouth, ne? Is that right? Oh, so nobody will say, Mommy, Coke, me, please. Anyways, what if I don't want to drink Coke, but I want to eat cake? That's better, ne? That's much better. How, guys, come on. It was Klompo's birthday yesterday. I can't eat cake. Oh, huh? No cake. Okay, Rendani, no cake for me and you, ne? All right. All right. It means you were listening at least, ne? Okay, we'll see who is doing the story next time. Then it says here, water is important in our lives, ne? And for our salvation too. Water doesn't just end on our lives when we drink every day, when we go to gym. Guys, they were from class and they were going to gym. Who does that? When do you go to gym? I'm gonna call your mom. You do, ne? What do you do at school? Which sport do you do? Which sport do you do at school? Guys, which schools are those? Soccer. What do you do? Beep test. Oh, B, we need something that will move your body. Beep test won't move your body. Volleyball, are you there? Which exercise? Netball. I will ask your teacher. Fine. Randy, which sport? Middle distance. Okay, what's that? Yes? You jog 2 times in a field. When? Oh, okay. Sunday, what do you do? Standing. Cross country. Hi guys, what sport is that? Oh, thank you guys. You know, when was I born? There was nothing like that. We were just rounding the field 100 times, that's all. Okay, who has a Bible today? Ooh, guys, we are powerful, mas. Let's read John 4, verse 14. John 4, verse 14. John in the New Testament, far at the back, that side, a big 4 and the small 14. Those who didn't bring their Bibles, what's happening, my friends? Did you forget them? Oh, let's hope at 2 o'clock you'll be having your Bibles back. Okay. Whilst they are looking for the verse, I said John 4, verse 14. Not First John, John. Got it? Okay, you will read for us.
But whoever drinks the water I gave them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water, welling up to entire life.
All right, did we get the verse? Did we get the verse? Okay. Who knows what the play was teaching us today? What was it teaching us? To drink water. Oh, okay. We can use water for a lot of things, ne? Is that right? Okay, what did you use water for this morning? Colgate. Bathing. Brushing the teeth. Cooking. Who was cooking in the morning? So you were washing dishes this morning? I must visit your house. There is some abuse going on. What else were you doing in the morning with water? Yeah. Drinking and then bathing and... Oh, okay. Then let me ask you this one. We use water when we are doing when it's baptism. Ne? Why do we use water in the baptism service? Why? I didn't say how. I said why. English. Why? Why? He's telling me the how part. I said why. The reason we are using water. It doesn't matter if it's washing the feet or if it's when they are dipping them inside, but we use water. Why? Yes. She's saying because it's holy water. Who else? Yes. Because it will make your body strong. So nobody knows. Guys, I was going to tell you the answer, but no, I'm taking it back home. Huh? Why, Krista? To wash your sins away, is that fine? Yeah. Do we give her a star? Yeah. Oh, okay. Others are saying no, others are saying right. Remember our stars, it's our friends who give us. Yes, Nan. For you to become a Christian, you need that water there. If you didn't go to that baptismal water, you are never. Yes. It's for representing God. Okay, she's saying it represents God from washing your sins away. All right, let me get my answer then. Because it washes away our sins and makes us clean. It symbolizes our cleanliness or our new start with God. Is that fine? Yes. When you want that new start with God, mothers, there, when we are ready for that water, then you will know what it means. Those who have Bibles, 1 Peter 3 verse 21. Ooh, I won't finish. First Peter, I'm waiting. At the back, Aya, at the back. New Testament, far at the back. First Peter. Hey. First Peter, guys, we don't have Bibles there. Please open again. First Peter 3 verse 21. Gold, did you get it? Okay, you will let me know when you got it, ne? I'm just reading something else, waiting for you. Yes, our bodies need that fresh start every time, so to function well, ne? When we drink water, come to me. When you got it, come. When we drink water, we hydrate our body cells. You listen. Those who don't have Bibles, you listen. When we drink water, we hydrate our body cells. Then we can think and function well. And we can even do God's work diligently and in full capacity because now we are well. Let's get our verse. 1 Peter 3 verse 21.
And this water symbolizes baptism that now saves you also, not the removal of dirt from the body, but the pledge of a good conscience towards God. It saves you by the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
All right. Did we get our verse there? Yes. What was it saying? You said yes. I got you. All right. Guys, today's lesson, who want to tell me what was it about? The lesson, I don't mean the play. Why must I never mind? I mind. It was about? Yes, Shewu, it was about the poison. Wonderful. It says we must drink water every day. Okay, this is what I got. Listen to what I got. Asande, are you fine? Why are you taking the thing? No, don't do that to the kids. Okay, this is what I got today, ne? This lesson is not just about us drinking water and keeping ourselves healthy. That is so important as much as it is an opportunity for us to reflect and think about the importance of water in our salvation or in our Christian life. Ne? Remember, we are going to pray now. Ne? We are going to pray to thank God for the clean water we receive every day and to think about Jesus, who told the people that if they came to him, they will never be thirsty. Water is important in our lives. Can you think of stories that involve water in the Bible? Which stories do you remember that involves water in the Bible? Which story? The woman and the well, we are going to do that next Sabbath. Which story? John the Baptist. What's happening with John the Baptist? Baptizing Jesus, you will tell us next Sabbath. I want the full story. When Moses closed the Red Sea, please prepare that one. Next, Tim. When Jesus turned water into wine, prepare that one. When Moses struck the rock. Oh, the water, there is water happening there. Don't worry, Nkosi will tell me more next Sabbath. I want to know all the stories that has water there. Jonah, what's wrong with Jonah? When Jonah was swallowing the fish. Oh, that time. You prepare that one for us, ne? A last one. I want a last story. Noah. What's wrong with Noah? Okay, when that time of Noah and the floods, ne? So next Sabbath we will have those stories happening, ne? Is that fine? Tell me if you need help. So who is going to pray for us? Come, my friend. Who else? Come. Also come. 2 of you are going to pray today. There, 2 today. All right, we all close our eyes. They are praying for us, ne? He will start.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Next.
Thank you, God. We were at church. We are closing our eyes. We are listening to our God. And we are listening to Jesus. We pray, Amen.
We love your stories, yes we do. We thank you, yes we do. So don't forget to come again, Oh yes, to tell us more. We love your story, yes we do. We thank you, yes we do. So don't forget to come again, Oh yes, to tell us more.
Indeed, the future of the church is in good hands. They don't need to be reminded of the stories. She just said which story in the Bible is about water, and there was one after another. So I'm proud to say the future of the church is in good hands. To introduce the panel before us, we have Brother Moody, who gave us the prayer. We have Elder Viriri, who gave us the offertory reading. I am Smangele, and the food from above is coming with the Elder Gunene. We will rise and sing song number 38 as he comes up front.
Let's all rise. Qinisela kubaba ezweni 2. Qinisela kubaba ezweni naphakathi kwesiphithiphithi etwala kuphela elamandla ekulweni nesitha masimedwaleni siqine edwaleni phezulu kukaKristu uma singanqoba siyophela nginisele ngokulungileyo ingesaboku inhliziyo kuKristu kuphela amen uzono zonke lapha wasime sigcine phezulu kukaKristu uma senganqoba siyophephela esixukwini phezulu qinisele qiniswele lonke noma linzima lodlula konke itwala kuphela eyosiza kuyo kimi singaphasimetwaleni sigcine etwaleni phezulu kukaKristu uma senganqoba siyophephela let's do it one more time. Let's do it one more time. Zulu masime sigcine etwaleni phezulu kukaKristu uma siyophephela esixukwini phezulu. Amen.
Lift up Christ. Tell the world. God is good. All the time. Siyabonga. I greet the Church of God in the name of Christ Jesus Christ. Amen. We thank God for His presence. And we thank God for all the programs that we have gone through, including the children's sermon. Our sermon is entitled Run Your Own Race. It's entitled Run Your Own Race. Our key text is 1 Corinthians 9, verse 24 to 27. Let's look at our Bibles. Let's turn them to 1 Corinthians 9, verse 24 to 27. Are we there? 1 Corinthians 9, verse 24 to 27. Do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but only one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you may win. Everyone who competes in the games exercises self-control in all things. They then do it to receive a perishable wreath, but we an imperishable. Therefore, I run in such a way as not without aim. I box in such a way as not beating the air. But I discipline my body and I make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified. I'll read it again for those who are still paging through. Do you not know that those who run in the race all run, but only one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you may win. Everyone who competes in the games exercises self-control in all things. They then do it to receive a perishable wreath, but we an imperishable. Therefore, I run in such a way as not without aim. I box in such a way as not beating the air, but I discipline my body and I make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified. May we bow our heads and pray. Our God, thank you for the message. Thank you for choosing this part of the Bible. And we ask that you help us to understand and help us to be able to make decisions because of this message. This is my prayer in Jesus Christ. Amen. I want us to take a journey or put ourselves in the shoes or in the life of a runner. Maybe before we can get to the life of the runner, this verse that we just read now, Paul is likening the journey of faith to that of running a race or being an athlete. Those who run the race to win a prize. The reason why they are running is because there is a prize that they are looking forward to. Paul here is emphasizing more on the efforts required in a journey of faith and how we should exercise self-control during the running. Are we together, church? For those who do sports will agree with me that being an athlete requires discipline, perseverance, and fitness. Today, I want us to look at the life of a runner and compare it with the life or the journey of faith that we are in right now. How many of you have done any running before? Just to exercise, not running away from something. Okay, a few of you. How many of you are involved in some kind of sports that requires aggressive or excessive physical activity? All right, good. So you will relate to what we are going to talk about today. A life of a runner. There are different kinds of runners. I myself, I claim to be one of the runners. And I've learned so many lessons about life as I do the running, and also spiritual lessons in the journey or in the life of being a runner. So there are different kinds of runners. There are those who do long distance. There are those who do short distances. And I heard that the friend here is saying is doing middle distance running. So there are different kinds of runners. Those that are able-bodied and those that are disabled. But the common thing about them, they all run for a prize. The common thing, they all do what? They run for the prize. Are we together, chairs, or are we worried about time? Time. Okay. In the journey of life or in the journey of faith, what matters is we are God's children. We have a prize to obtain at the end. Therefore, run your race. Maybe I should have said the title is Run Your Own Race. Make sure you finish it. Because at the end of the day, is that prize that we are looking to obtain. And it's important for you to understand that the reason you are in the journey, it's because something is promised to you. A song, popular song, there's a race that I must run. There are victories to be won. Give me power every hour to be true. We know the song, right? It talks about a race of faith that we are running, and there are victories to be won in this journey, and we require power, and we require it every hour to always stay focused. Everyone has got his own race to run. Therefore, make sure you run your what? Not someone else's race. Your what? Your own race. As a runner, you are required to prepare for the race thoroughly in order for you to cope with the race. So preparation is what is required as an athlete. You need proper running equipment, which include your shoes, which include the right clothing, the light clothing. You need adequate training, because this distance that you're going to run is a bit long. There are those who will have short races in the journey of faith. There are those who will have long journey. You may have a short journey, but a very hard one. You may have a long journey, still a hard one. So think of yourself where you are with the journey of faith. But in this journey, before you embark on it, it is important that you do a thorough preparations, as the runner will do. You need to familiarize yourself with the running route or the distance that you're going to cover, the conditions in which you will run under, the environment and everything. That's still part of preparation. You need to feed your body in the right food and drinks so that you have energy for you to cope in the race. Running requires that you exercise self-control. Running requires to exercise self-control, which I will touch on it more in this presentation. To be successful in the race, you need a proper plan on how you're going to run the race. You may need to consult those who have successfully run the race. Now, accepting Christ should not be a thing that we go to or we do it blindly. Accepting Christ as your personal Savior is not something that you do blindly. We must have a full picture of what we are getting ourselves into. Many discover along the journey that it's not where they want to go. If you read Romans 10, verse 14, faith comes from hearing the message, and the message is heard through the word about Christ. You cannot start the journey if you have not heard the word of God. You cannot start the journey of faith if God has not said anything to you. It's the preparation I'm talking about, that before you embark on a journey, you know what you are getting yourself into. Therefore, the Bible asks us to be born again. That's one step that is going to help us to qualify for this race. Jesus was speaking to Nicodemus. He's saying, very truly I tell you, no one can see the kingdom of God unless they are born again. Being born again is something that sometimes we take for granted. What does it mean to be born again? It means you leave the old life and accept Christ as your personal Savior and you become a new creation. That's part of preparation for the journey. But unfortunately, some of us have joined the race illegally. Some of us have joined the race through marriage because you're finding a partner and you think it's good to be Adventist. Some of us have joined the race because of hunger, because the church is feeding us, then I must affiliate and be a member. Some of us, because of some business deals, you want to be part of the church or remain as a member of the church. That's joining the race illegally because there's no much preparations that was done. And you find yourself in a journey and you don't know where you are going. And you are frustrated along the way. The questions today I want to ask you is, are you truly a born-again Christian? Have you repented from your sins? Have you prepared yourself for the journey? Have you surrendered your old ways to Christ? As part of being an athlete, I said you need to prepare yourself and have the adequate clothing, very light clothing that you are able to cope with the weather and all the heat and stuff. And God is asking us today to put on the full armor of God so that when the days of evil come, you may be able to stand. I'm reading from Ephesians 6, verse 10 to 18. Let me just ask you to open it so that I'm not too fast for you. What clothing do we need for us to be able to cope in the journey of faith we are called to travel. Are we there? Therefore, put on the full armor of God so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you have done everything, to stand. Stand firm, then with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, and pray in the Spirit on all occasions with all kinds of prayers and requests. With this in mind, be alert and always keep on praying for all the Lord's people. This is what we are called to put on as we are preparing ourselves as we go through this journey of faith. Now, I want us to get into the actual race itself. I want us to get into the race itself, but before we can get into what the runner experiences during the race, we'll read Ministry of Healing, page 453. The Christian life is a battle and a march. In this warfare, there is no release. The effort must be continuous and persevering. It is by unceasing endeavor that we maintain the victory over the temptations of Satan. Christian integrity must be sought with restless energy and maintained with resolute fixedness of purpose. This is talking about the journey of faith. Being a Christian or a Christian life is like a battle. A Christian life is like running a race. There is no time to relax. You are required to continuously run and persevere whatever comes your ways. At some point in your life, you get to be baptized. That's when you have prepared yourself and you want to accept Christ as your personal Savior. And there are many distractions as you are heading into baptism, as there are distractions with a runner that is preparing to run a race. A runner finds himself forgetting things as he is going to run a race. A runner finds himself getting lost or with GPS problems. A runner finds himself looking for parking and getting late to start the race. These are things that a runner will experience as they are about to take the journey of faith. It happens to many of us, finding yourself not able to take that decision of starting the race of faith because of all these distractions. You start a race with many people, or people around you, but not all the people you start with are going to the same direction. It has happened. You are doing a 42 kilometers and you are starting with people who are doing 21 kilometers or 10 kilometers. And it is important as you start the race. Starting a race, it is easy, but running it is not easy. So it is important that you are well prepared and you know the route, you know where you are heading to as you start this journey of faith, so that you may not be surprised along the way of what this journey is about. Are we still together, church? Shall we lay a foundation for a certain point that I want to address? I said you will start with many. It is important to stick to your plan, to be able to run your own race and not someone else's race. And in this journey of faith, God did not promise that the journey will be easy. But He is asking us to persevere, and He is asking us to be strong and keep focused. If you read James 1 verse 2 to 4, my brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. This is a verse that is saying You will go through stuff as you start the race, as you run the race of faith. But count it all joy when you face these difficulties in your race, because this is the way God wants to strengthen you. And indeed, as a runner, you find that your journey becomes so hard. But because you know the prize, you know what you are hoping to achieve, you persevere. And you find reasons to be joyous in the midst of troubles. Therefore, pace yourself and don't use people around you as your standard. As you run your race, it's important that you pace yourself according to the strength that you have and not look at people around you. As I said, we all start the race and it looks like we're all on the same level. But it is important to know your level and be able to run your own race without looking at people as your standard. And the standard that is being given to us is the standard of Christ. Because looking at people is something that will cause us not to finish the race. When you run a race, you discover there are different types of people. There are people who are called pace makers, people who are setting the pace for whatever goals that people want to achieve. These usually people are hired by the race organizers. They're setting the race. They are there to make sure that even if someone else joined the race somehow, they are able to catch the person that definitely that person did not start with everyone else. So those people play different roles as they're setting the pace. And it's important that you know who you are following in the race. Looking at people sometimes may cause you to fall, may cause you to sustain injuries that are not necessary. And along in the race, there are people who are called rats, who are, especially in big races, who will want to set the pace in a way that they want to distract the top runners. They are starting the race not because they want to finish it. They just want to make the race look hard, so that if you're planning to do it at certain pace, you start to worry that the race is now taking another speed. Then you are tempted to run faster than what you wanted to do. And these people tend not to finish the race. What am I saying with this? There are people we start the race with in the church and we think we are all on the same page or we are following the same route. But those people have got nothing to do with the prize that we are looking forward to. They join the race for their own purposes, to distract those who are wanting to get to the finish. Be careful of such people, and most of them are part of us as Christians in the Adventist church. They are baptized, they are members of the church, they are elders, they are deacons. They tend to be the ones that want to set a pace, but they have got no interest in finishing the race. That's why the theme of today is run your race and not allow people to be the ones that are setting the pace for your race. We said Christ is the one who should be setting the pace for your life. Why Christ qualifies to set the pace for your life? Because he has been through the race. I said as part of preparation, it is important that you are able to consult people who have run the race so that you may have an idea of how it is like. Bazalwane, Christ did not just come to die and resurrect. He came to die and live a life, and then he came to live and die and resurrect. So the living, Christ was setting a trend, was setting a pace of how a Christian journey should look like. Are we still together, church? So runners will cause you to fall that you are running with. And please don't look at those that are along the road. There are people along the road as you run that will motivate, some will discourage you. It is not so much important to listen to them. The ones that are so dangerous are the ones that run with you. Sometimes they will make you fall intentionally. Sometimes they will make you fall unintentionally. So if you will focus on them, you may not finish the race on time. Be careful of those who you run with. Remember, the race is yours, and the prize is promised to you, not to the group. So it is important to run your own race. Also, be careful of those who are along the side of the road. Who are those? Those are our boyfriends that are not in the faith, that are trying to encourage you to what you are doing. Some will discourage you. It is not advisable to listen to them because they are not experiencing the journey. They have not started the journey, and they are not going anywhere. So don't be tempted by such kind of people. There's a pastor called Pastor Madlala. He runs Comrades. He told us a very sad story of him not finishing Comrades. He said it was few minutes. He could see in his watch that he's left with maybe less than 5 minutes to finish. But he had a small boy, Mshan, on the side of the road saying, go, 7 minutes to go. Then he's thinking, this boy must be correct. Maybe my watch is not so correct. Then he ran, he slowed down his pace. And then as he come out of the bridge, if you watch Comrades, as soon as you come out of the bridge or under the bridge, then there is a finish line just as you come out. And then just as he goes under the bridge and he hears some sound, almost sound of a gun. Then because the boy said 7 minutes, he says to himself, what kind of sound is that? Then he continued and said, no man, it must be something else. And that sound was a sound of saying, if you did not cross the line, then you are not able to qualify or you are not finishing the race on time. Why am I talking about this? Making this example. People along the side, if you're going to listen to them as the ones that are setting the pace for you, you may not finish the race on time. You may not finish the race on time. Don't rely on people. Look at Jesus, who is your source of strength, power, and endurance. Look at Jesus, who is the author and finisher of your faith. In the running, most running events have got breaks or water points. What are these water points for? It's for the runners to be able to recover and drink some water and find something to eat. In the journey of faith, you need such stations where you cannot afford to easily pass those stations. Because if you pass the water station, you don't know when is the next station coming. It is important to be able to pause a bit and slow down and catch up, get something to drink, get something to eat, and then you embark on the journey. What am I talking about? These breaks or these water points in the spiritual journey. God has given us the Sabbath as a way to recover, as a way to gain strength and power in the journey of faith. We are required to have daily devotions. We are required to be part of church programs. All these programs are like the water breaks that we cannot afford to miss because we need strength, and they will help us to be able to push through and be able to finish the race. Unfortunately, some of us do not have appetite for such programs. Some people find coming to Sabbath as an option. Some people find reading a Bible as an option. Some people find coming to attend church programs as an option. So as a runner, do not pass the station or the water station easily unless if you have enough water to go through. What am I saying? God has created institution of the Sabbath for us to regenerate and for us to gain strength so that we are able to cope with the race that we are running. Unfortunately, some people do not have such appetite. What are they having appetite for? An appetite of the actual foods that we're eating. the lovers of meat, lovers of food, lovers of all the kind of unnecessary things that God has warned us against. And we're finding ourselves not able to cope with the race. In the water stations, sometimes they will have Coke, sometimes they will have sweets, sometimes they will have all these kind of foods that they're hoping that runners will benefit from. As a runner that is prepared to finish the race on time, it is important not to eat anything or drink anything when you get to those stations. What am I saying? Yes, God has instituted the Sabbath as the way of us getting regenerated and getting energy and power to carry on. But it is important that you do not make those stations as your permanent place to stay. Because if you use the Sabbath, or if you use all these stations that God has prepared for us, these church programs, as the only place where you think you can now stop and not go further, then you are not in the same journey that everyone is going in terms of finishing on time. One of the objectives of the health message is to encourage church members to become vegetarians. I want to touch on the physical impact or the spiritual impact of the food that we eat that is delaying us from the journey that we are running as Christians. It's unfortunate many of us do not want to hear when God speaks to us through these messages, and not listening to God will make us not have energy to survive or to win the prize. Let's read Deuteronomy 7, verse 15. Deuteronomy 7, verse 15, quickly. It says, "And the Lord will protect you from all sickness. He will not let you suffer from the terrible diseases you knew in Egypt, but he will inflict them on all your enemies." God is promising us that in our journey, he will protect us of all diseases. Accepting Christ as your personal Savior, just saying, "I accept Christ as my personal Savior," is not just a way of being protected from diseases. What is protecting us from diseases is when we listen to God, when we obey God's instruction. God has warned us of the foods that we eat, has warned us of the drinks that we drink. And these things, if you look at the life of a runner, can determine how far you will go in the journey. So if you do not take the right stuff in the preparation phase or during the race, you may be not able to finish the race. As I was saying, some of us are lovers of meat, all the processed food, sugar, salt, coffee, etc., alcohols, and all the kind of unwanted foods. And God is warning us today, in order for us to finish the race, in order for us to be protected from these diseases meant injuries when you are running. So for us to be protected from these injuries, it's important to be careful of what we eat, because that will determine whether we finish the race or not. Did you know that the food that we eat is directly linked to the spiritual life that we live? If the food that we eat is unhealthy, it will make our brains and minds not to comprehend God's things. And we are discouraged and we do not have strength to carry on with the journey that we are taking. Are we still together, church? Diseases like COVID-19 and other diseases would not have affected us if we obeyed God. Did you hear what I said? These diseases will not have affected us if we did what? Obeyed God. If we get to the stations that I'm talking about as a runner and you just take anything that you want, you are not able to finish the race. If we take anything with our mouths, if we do anything with our bodies, if you don't practice good stewardship, we may not finish the race on time. Because we are what we eat, and the food that we eat is directly linked to the spiritual life that we live. Therefore, it is important to exercise self-control. Paul is saying in the verse that we read, run the race. Those who run these races, they exercise what you call self-control. This is the self-control I'm talking about. I'll read from the Ellen White Reflecting Christ Devotion, page 292. It says, the highest evidence of nobility is a Christian, or in a Christian, is self-control. He who can stand unmoved amid a storm of abuse is one of God's heroes. To rule the spirit is to keep self under discipline, to resist evil, to regulate every word and deeds by God's grace, great standard of righteousness. He who has learned to rule his spirit will rise above the slights and rebuff the annoyances. I'll leave it here for now. What is this quotation talking about? It's talking about a life that the highest evidence of nobility in Christian life is self-control. That we must exercise self-control as we run this race of faith. Paul is saying, I beat my body, I make it a slave. What does that mean? It means I subject my body to the will of God. As much as my sinful nature is inclined to doing wrong, but I discipline my body and subject it to God's will. This is what is required as a runner, is to tell your body. There was a point when I was running, I felt like I would not finish and my knee was getting sore. And I had to come to a point where I speak to the knee and say, please stop it. What does that mean? It means the mind goes above what the body is feeling. And because you have a price, the body will listen to the mind. So if your mind is clouded with all the dirty things that we eat, because we said what we eat influences our thinking, our mind, we are not able to be fit for the journey. You are not going to have that self-control. The reason why Paul is saying, I beat myself, or I beat my body, I put it under suffering, is saying, so that I may not be what? If you read it, I may not be what? Disqualified. It is possible to run a race, but not qualify, or not get to the finish. Why are you not going to get to the finish? Because of the weakness of the body or weakness of the mind. So in this journey of life, it's important that when God is instructing us in His word and is giving us His promises to self, to say, we'll be protected from these diseases. And He says, you must eat this, you must not eat this. It's not just saying that because it's nice to say. He's saying that because He knows that if we listen to Him, we'll be able to have strength, we'll be able to be strong and finish the race. Sometimes as you run, you get tired and you feel weak. And you slow down and start walking slowly. Yes, people will pass you along the way as you are taking a break, but walking is not a sign of weakness. It is an opportunity to recover utatamandla. So allow yourself to rest and eat the right food, spiritual food, for you to be able to take amandla uye phambili. God is promising support as we go through the journey of faith. He's saying, I will be with you in all the things that you are going through. He's not saying he's going to take away the load or the difficulty in the journey. He's saying he's going to be there to make it light, to make it easy for you to go through. Romans 2, verse 6 to 8. This is my last verse. God will repay each person according to what they have done. To those who by persistence in doing good seek glory, honor, and immortality, he will give eternal life. But for those who are self-seeking and who reject the truth and follow evil, there will be wrath and anger. There's a prize for every one of us. Sonke siyasebenza, sonke we are on the race. We might not be on the race that is heading to the same destination, but everyone is on the race. Some are doing short distance, some are doing long distance. But what I like is there's a prize for everyone. And God is going to give a prize to everyone. The question is, what kind of a prize are you going to get? In this verse, we are promised the eternal life. The journey to eternal life, the journey to eternal life requires preparation, requires you to be in the right gear, requires you to be in the right relationship with God, requires you to be strong, and requires you to have the Holy Spirit in your heart to be able to complete the race. Therefore, run your own race and let not other people or influence your race. Let Christ be the standard. Because if Christ is the one who's setting the pace for you, you are guaranteed success, you are guaranteed the eternal life that God has promised us. May God bless us as we reflect on the journey that we have taken. You may not have started the journey correctly. You may not have done things right, but the Holy Spirit is there to assist us, to give us strength and power to carry on. May God bless you. Amen.
Before we close, I have two announcements. The first one is a reminder that all church members are please requested to stay behind as there is a meeting that needs to take place, a quick one, an urgent one. The second one is, and I've just received a message from the conference. Unfortunately, due to the corona, we'll have to cancel the Global Youth Day next week, Sabbath. In closing, we will open number 144.
Let's all rise. Number 144. Ngiqonda indlela enyukayo, ngiqonda indlela enyukayo, to. Ngiqonda indlela enyukayo, ngikhwelazo, ngizinsuku, nguye okhulekayo, Nkosi ngimise phezulu, Nkosi ngisibambiseke emhlabeni olithundu endaweni ephakeme, Nkosi ngimise phezulu, angithandi ukuhlala lapho kunekane nkulu, kumabanye bangahlala, mina ngithanda phezulu, Nkosi ngisibambiseke emhlabeni olithundu endaweni ephakeme, Nkosi ngimise phezulu, ngiphihlale hlanzekile, uSathane yangikhoza, kodwa inkolo yamizile, Nkosi ngimise phezulu, Nkosi ngisibambiseke emhlabeni olithundu siqongweni ngibone ukukhazimla ngifinyele ezulwini Nkosi ngimise phezulu Nkosi ngisimamiseke emhlabeni ongidundu endaweni ephakeme Nkosi ngimise phezulu.
Let's close our eyes. Our Father God, thank you for the message from Paul that is reminding us that we are on the journey and we are running a race. And in this race, you are required to have adequate preparations. We are required to exercise self-control, be able to eat the right things and be able to feed our bodies, feed ourselves spiritually with the right food. Because this journey will require energy, will require strength, endurance. And it's not gonna get any easy. Because you're saying these things will come to us so that we may have strength, we may be able to overcome bigger things. In the book of Jeremiah, Jeremiah is complaining of the wickedness around him and is complaining of all the troubles. God is saying to him, if you are able to run with footmen and you are complaining, uzokhopha njani Jesu or Jeremiah when you run with horses, saying this journey will not get easy, it will get difficult. But as it gets difficult, we know the Holy Spirit, you are there to assist us, not to feel the load, to assist us to carry on, because sometimes we are discouraged, sometimes we feel we may just stop and not go further. We ask for strength, we ask Holy Spirit to assist us, so that at the end of the day we find ourselves finishing the race on time and not be like the 5 foolish virgins who had oil but not enough food, did not really take things serious, and they came bafica umnyango uvaliwe. We want to be the ones that are wise, who will have enough oil in our lamps, who will have you as the Holy Spirit in our hearts. We want to be the ones who will win and finish the race on time. We believe you are coming for the second time, and we know your coming is soon, and we are almost there. Help us, Lord, not to listen to people around us who are telling us we still have time. Help us to be able to stick to your plan or use you as our pacemaker to be able to finish on time. Thank you, Lord. Help us forgive our sins and be with us as we continue with this journey. Sekuseduze Jesu. Siqhube ngoJesu. Amen.
In filing out, we shall make use of number 189. Number 189. Asakili belala. Asakili belala pa. Sing up. Yeah, let's try that one. Asakili to. Asakili.